Be authentically you. 'Cause now is your season to live out your reason. Just be you. How you gonna leave your imprint on this world? Be authentically you. 'Cause now is your season to live out your reason. Just be you. How you gonna leave your imprint on this world?
Well, hey, y'all, and welcome to Authentically You Imprint. The heartbeat of Authentically Imprint is to bring attention to or shine the spotlight on those in our communities who are out there getting the job done. They're getting things done, but who will not be seen on mainstream media. That whole 80-20 rule applies here as well. 80% of the people making our lives as comfortable and as meaningful as they are get 20% of the exposure and the attention and the thanks that they deserve. We want to turn that around and shine the spotlight on the wonderful people in our homes, on our block, in our communities and neighborhoods, in our cities and our states. With that being said, let's welcome to the show today, Troy Barnes.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for the great outreach you guys have in the community, and keep on keeping on making authentically you what it is, and I'm happy to be here today.
Awesome. After much drilling down, Troy Barnes, my mother's maiden name is Barnes, and so we thought we were cousins. We thought we had to be cousins because we know people from the same general area. But after much drilling down, we found out that Troy Barnes is a first cousin of one of my best friends. So I absolutely love that. Marcia Sharp and I met in the 3rd grade, and we went to school together until I was in the 11th grade when I moved here. I moved here to Maryland in my senior year of high school. So that's how, this relationship has gotten started, and how I believe it's going to be in years to come. I know we're going to cross paths somewhere in Pine Tops, North Carolina at some point.
Highway 43, we're there.
right. Okay, so let's get started, and by you telling us a little bit about who you are, who is Troy Barnes? What is your mission, your passion? Tell us a little bit about
Okay, well, the who I am is not as important as what I want to do, but I'll give you a quick rundown of basically, I was born in Philadelphia, single mom, the whole 9 yards. Everybody talks about the story. She saw a vision, and she moved us from Philadelphia in a grade school type and moved us down to North Carolina, where I learned my hard work, sharecropping, that kind of cool stuff. And after the hot sun of North Carolina, I realized that I needed an education because I did not want to do a sharecropping job for the rest of my life. So after a little bit of inspiring my teachers sort of pouring into me, I got a chance to go to the United States Military Academy at West Point, and graduated there in 92. And then the rest is history. Retired from that Army after a 28-year career. And through that time, I've really been passionate about education. And so I kind of have a 10-year plan that I'm 5 years into right now, where I want to get my doctorate in education. I'm 4 classes short from the coursework, and I'll move on there. And I want to go and just bring back the passion for education back into the communities. And I don't want to start a charter school. I don't want to take more dollars from what we're already paying. I want to go into a school that is already established by your tax dollars. And I want to change that and inspire that school. And I don't want to go to the school that already has all the bells and whistles and any administrator could go in. I want to go into a school that needs compassion, needs some energy, needs a chance to have somebody who believes in them. And I want to change that school for the better.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's so wonderful, Troy. What amazed me is that in spite of your achievements, how modest you are. And then we talk about relationships and things like that. What's further amazing is we did not know that Troy's brother is a young man that is, quote unquote, our nephew.
Our nephew. Adopted
nephew. All this we did not know until we met. But I want to, first of all, thank you for your service to this country, Troy. Yes. It's a time where, in this day and time, people don't give recognition to those who have served and those who have committed their lives in a large percentage of their life to the military. So we say thank you so much for that.
You.
And when I speak about being modest, why don't you tell the people about, number one, I don't want to say it. I want you to tell the people about your rank in the military, because I saw you skip over it, and this is a large part of what you're getting into to inspire young people as to the achievements that they can make. So if I could back you up a little bit and
I love it.
just go over your military service and your rank. I won't say it, you say it.
Okay, well, so I retired as a lieutenant colonel out of the United States Army after like I said, my years of service. I really, after those years, wanted to go do something different. And so I finished out the Pentagon, part of the great organization. If you ever get a chance to go to the Pentagon to visit it, it's a great office building. There's minds that they are just outstanding. And I realized that after those years of service, which I enjoyed every minute of it, I really wanted to go do something different. And like I said, put on my path to education. So I took that rank and passed up all the other stuff and decided I wanted to get out and go do something different and just chart that path. So I was blessed enough, and give the credit to Lord to become a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army and do well, commanded at battalion commander level. So, all that stuff that comes along and the accolades. But at the end of the day, I always tell people it's really about the opportunities that the Lord provides for you, doing your best during those opportunities. So always like to give credit where credit's due, and that stuff. So thanks for that and that little piece.
Again, we say thank you so much for your service. It is totally amazing what people can do who have foundations and who have spiritual connections to God Himself, and give God the credit for where they have made it. But I got to say to you, you have made it, and you have made great accomplishments in life. So we're just expecting your next level of service to be just as great as the one you just left. So with that, I'm gonna say you can go ahead now.
All right. Now, my husband mentioned that I did not send him any questions, and that was actually one of my points that I was going to bring forth. The mere fact that you don't push yourself forward and push your accomplishments and your achievements to the forefront, but it's that passion that's down within you that's what drives you. So as a follow-on to what I was going to say earlier in thanking you for your service, do you attribute your successful military career to your present passion for education, or did your passion for education launch you into your military career?
So that's a great question. What actually launched me into a military career was because I was poor. And what launched me in my military career was the United States Military Academy is a chance to get an Ivy League level education at no cost to the actual individual. And so when my mother informed me that she could not pay for college, I took it upon myself to take that burden off of her I initially tried to enlist. And I had we talked about a story last week, and I just want to give credit where a friend of mine heard that my teacher paid for my SAT, my classmate gave her grandfather my actual request for an appointment, and the rest is history. So again, I believe the Lord orders one's steps. And so that ability to want to educate myself took me to the military, and the military taught me so much about honor and training and bringing people up and encouraging one another in the midst of arms, of course, but that passion is exactly the same as education. So I was able to take that passion, as you talk about, in education with training that I received in the military, and now I believe I can take that same sort of framework and really apply it to a school where we hold kids accountable for their actions with love and compassion. See, I think one of the things in our current school system that is kind of wayward is we believe that love can't be tough. And by tough doesn't mean you have to be ugly, abusive, demeaning. It means that when you have a standard, you hold a child to a standard, and when they do not meet the standard, you give them the consequences of their action.
Right.
But you must give them the resources in order for them to excel.
Yes, to be successful.
Those are hand in hand. We try to think we can leave one or the other, but you have to be able to provide the resources for that child if you want that child to excel. But once you give them the resources, you must hold them accountable for their decisions, good or bad, and demonstrate to them what's important in those decisions.
Absolutely. Thoroughly agree with that. Before we get, I want to turn you loose on this passion of yours in a minute. before before we get there, we rarely get to these places of awareness and mission centered, focus without those who are closest to us cheering us on. So, give us a snapshot of those who have been and continue to be the wind beneath your wings.
Well, I got to start with my wife because people talk about who's the who, and they said behind every good man is a good woman. I would like to say the woman behind me ain't behind me at all. Just let you know.
There you go.
First of all,
but just to let you know.
Just
but,
call me Mr. Chris.
Yeah, for 34 years, my wife, who's my high school sweetheart, has supported everything I've done to the 11 moves we had while we were in the military overseas, as well as all over the United States. She has always loved me for who I am and supported the passion I have for people and kids. Very, very in the background, but she's never, ever, ever, ever not encouraged me or supported me there. So that would be the first person I started with. Other than Jesus Christ, I tell people, if you want to start with a level, God first, but, you said people. Right. But, and the next one it was my mom. Mm-hmm. And I extend that to my whole family, but my mother instilled in me a discipline to do the right thing and to hold me accountable for my actions, whatever they were, the rest of my life. And she always eliminated excuses when it came to who I am and what I needed to do. Always eliminated excuses. And the next thing that I always had, which I thought was pretty great, was my kids. My children are outstanding, and they hold me accountable for my actions and the way I think to make sure I am progressing in the way that I think and ensure that I'm not stagnant. By the same token, they provide a great encouragement as well. And then I'd like to extend that just if we have enough time.
That's good.
Let them talk about, I gave you a quick story about the people who supported me in education. And Mrs. Hunt is an example of the many educators while I was in high school that saw something in me that was something special. But if I could tell the listeners about the story, what happened was I informed Ms. Hunt that I wasn't going to college and I didn't have the money. And she taught me AP history. And while I was in her AP history class, this woman put into action real love. So because to me, my grandma used to say, action is a verb. Love is a verb. You got to go out and do it. You can't just say it. Love is a verb, right? And so what happened is when I told her about it, and she said, hey, you should go to college. You have all the skill set. And I told her to have the money. She stopped class right there. She walks over to her purse. She grabs an SAT application. We fill it out together. She writes the check. She puts it in the mail. And that's how I was able to take my SAT score. And she is an example of Mr. Vick, who's another physics teacher I had. I can name them all, but the point is I had a group of people who saw me, not what I could be today or what I was today, but they saw in me something that surpassed anything I could think about myself for tomorrow. And so, when I look back in my life, I've had those type of people who have supported me all along the way. And within the Army, I've always had commanders and fellow support officers who've just been there for me. So Troy is here today, not because of anything I've done. You guys give me great credit, but I have definitely had a support staff, which with every turn I take, do two things. They lift me up and smack me about the head and shoulders when I choose to get out of line. So that's what I think, is just truly the reason I'm able to succeed.
Awesome. And so that has been a huge part of the foundation of who you are that causes you now to want to do the same thing for someone else.
That's correct.
Absolutely. I love it.
I see, it's simple sometimes. Sometimes we make it too complicated because we get away from the basics.
Right.
I laugh that sometimes the old way is a good way.
It is.
People like to talk about, we need to do something new. Sometimes the old is not just good now, it's great tomorrow. And I think having a system of support, accountability, love, and challenging someone is a great system. I don't care if you're born in 1802, if you're born in, 2020, it doesn't matter when you're born. That model is great for humanity and for people regardless.
Absolutely. All right, so I think we're gonna jump into this passion of yours and let you go for it. So tell us about. You talked about your 10-year plan that you're 5 years into it. So tell us about where you see yourself at the end of this 5 years. What do you want to?
Okay, so like I said, I'm currently getting my doctorate in education, and that's so I have credibility within the profession. I think one of the things I do not want to go into a profession and not put in the work that honors the profession. So when I get to education, I have education, obviously. I've got masters and all those degrees and that kind of stuff. But I want to make sure that when I get to the education world, I have done due diligence to learn my profession and be in a position where I can guide, lead, train, motivate, all those things. So this 5-year plan has 3 years of getting my education. I currently work at a defense contracting company. And when I finish that, I am going to then in turn take the next 2 years to save money and start my Rolodex, if you will, of companies. Because the vision I have for a school is, I think most schools suffer because of resources. I believe I am one of many passionate educators for schools. I do not believe I'm bringing any more or less passion to the education field that's not currently there, but I do bring a business sense I believe is a little bit different than the model that's currently there. So my 5-year plan, after I do a little education, do a little fundraising, from that fundraising, I have a plan to go into an inner city, low performing school. It can be a low performing school that's out in a rural area, but a low performing school. And to that school, what I want to do is go in and teach for a couple of years, 2 to 3 years in the mathematics department. That happens to be my degree. It's in mathematics and applied mathematician. But I want to take that and teach and make sure I understand what the issues are of a school. And then I want to move to the administrative side and change the way that school functions, from the sense of, when you need things, a teacher should not go in their pocket to get those things. We already pay our teachers way too little for just what they do for the actual nation. So my thing is, why do we then in turn punish them by making them, because of the passion, the love they have for children, we punish them and say, you now have to take that small salary we give you and make it smaller, because you have to use that salary to get the things that we should provide to you. So one of the models I've learned of the business world is, major corporations throw away more money than I need for my school.
Right.
When you talk about a multi-billion-dollar company, 10% of a multi-billion-dollar company is a big number. I'm asking for 0.1% of the billion.
Right.
Like, I'm asking for $10,000. I'm asking for $5,000 to do the things I want to do. So I believe if I'm able to solicit, that's the word, let's not change what it is, solicit donations, support from major corporations, we can close that gap between the need of what we have and the budget. So schools they only have a budget big enough to be whatever. And we know that currently schools are done by taxation. Right? That's the model, right? And so higher earning people have more dollars to give their school. Poor people have less dollars to give your school. It's a normal model. So what I want to do is I want to augment or supplement that delta, so that those children can receive the type of funding that affluent schools get only because of where they live. And so if you can close that gap, I believe every child is a sponge ready to be taught. Yeah. And they only think they're not smart because you tell them. It isn't because they have any difference. You aren't born smart. You aren't born anything. You're born a child, and we nurture you and grow you and develop you, and then you become whatever it is you become. But so I believe if you give them an environment where somebody believes in them every day they come through the door, somebody tells them they are somebody every day they come through the door, that when they have that, they start believing it, they'll act like it. Because my grandma says, if you act like a fool, people will treat you like a fool. Treat you like one.
That is so true.
There you go.
So I've always said, hey, act like a champion. Act like a person of character. And then we start treating you like that, right? So that's how that's going to work for that passion. So that's the model. The model of the school doesn't change the curriculum. It doesn't change the academics. What it changes is the resources. And in turn, by changing those resources, we can grow better academics. They can have better experiences throughout those days because they have the resources to make that happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're going to believe that Mobile and Shell and all these large companies got somebody listening.
Right.
We're going to put the information in on this interview. We're going to put it up so that they can hear, just in case anybody's feeling that same passion that you're feeling, and they're sitting around with all that money they got to waste. You know what I'm saying? To put it into a good cause, we really have to really have to reach out. And I need you to understand, although this is a working process, it's also a process where money has to be there when this thing begins. So there's something, if you're ready to give or whatever the case may be, we'll have it set up so, and you can be able to keep track of his progress and all the things that are going on, but it definitely needs money. And out here on this, you know, today is a crazy day. You got to understand that we're talking here now in December of 2020. When this air, it'll be January 21. Thank God, and we're thanking God that we're all on the other side, getting to our plans. In this era that we're in 2020 and all this, Troy, let's just make it clear as to what you're saying about educating young people, because one of the barriers that we have in this country is the inequity, and not only color, but in the neighborhoods and all these type of things that we need to bring education in, and we'll find that it's not an equal balance in there. So there are some people that are under the bus and some people that are above. And when you're talking about educating young people and stuff, you're not just going for the poor. You're going for those who have, maybe it's a disability, maybe it's a discipline problem within the home because you got too much money.
That's correct.
Or whatever the case may be, and you don't have the principles and things like this. In this era of systemic racism, as it goes on and as it goes, and we, just so you know, we are Christians. And although this program is not just geared towards Christians, but our foundation, our base is, and we believe in love across the board. And we believe that true God's love crosses racial barriers and all this other type of stuff that we have. So when we talk, don't put us in the category to where we just talking, reaching the Black community and things like that. We are. And it's a good time to reach, but we're talking about reaching all communities. We're talking about reaching across the board. If you want to put in issues that you have with the inequities, that's good and fine, but the most important thing is that our kids get educated. And that we, as we move into 2021, hopefully with the new administration and their new program, hopefully, and we praying to God that systemic racism is cut.
Correct.
And that we'll work hard on cutting it, because we need to come together in this country. We're finding out right now that with this pandemic, whether you Black, white, or whatever the case may be, Corona can't get you.
Exactly.
And so can stupidity.
That's right.
Racial barriers.
And so can hatred and all this stuff based upon a man and his color and everything else. These things that we have tagged to our society. And if we're going to really educate our kids and get across that, we got to take step one. And 2021 is the great time to make the step into step one. So when you're talking about educating, you're not talking about looking at a person's color. You're not talking about looking, what you're talking about is going in and finding those kids who have a disadvantage for whatever the reason is, whether it be because of their color, whether because of lack of discipline in their homes, or whatever the case may be, whatever their barriers are. So just briefly deal with that for me.
What a great point. So the color that most kids deal with the education is green. And so resources and finances is the first issue. And to your point, it's like Corona. It doesn't care about your ethnicity. It doesn't care about your racial, it doesn't care about your sexual orientation. None of that cares. If you can't have the resources, the funding that allows you to provide for a child a safe school, which means it's free of violence. I'm not talking about the disagreement between, Susie and John because he didn't pick her up on the day, whatever. I'm talking about where kids are afraid to go in their school because there are bad things happening. You can't provide for that kid that environment. You can't provide the kid the textbooks and the information and the great teachers, because if you don't feel safe, you are not going to work in a place that you don't feel safe. This is not the military. I've deployed to countries and people have shot at me because we call it a war zone.
Right.
That's a place outside of what we talk about when we talk about education. If you use the words war and zone and education in the same sentence, we have made a mistake, right? And so these, to your point, the way you handle those things is when someone walks through the door of your school, they are first a student.
Right.
They are first trying to be educated. They can't be a black student. They can't be a white student. They can't be a rich student or a poor student or Hispanic student or Asian student or any other ethnicity you have there. You're just a student. And the reason you're a student is because you came through the door to learn about history, science, English, mathematics. The rhetorics are great. And then we can talk about psychology and other great things, biology, all those things that are great. But you must start first with understanding that when you look at another human being, you should see a human. You should see a person. And so one of the things I want to teach in the school is when you look at your fellow person, not man, not woman, just fellow person, if you don't see anything other than another human, we need to change the way you look. Maybe you need a set of bifocals. Maybe we need to change the lens at which you look through, right? We need to clean your glasses off because when you look at somebody else, you should only see another human. And that way, the way you deal with that racial tension, the way you deal with that, things is, I want to change all these words. In the school the word will be don't discriminate. That's it. Right. I don't need any other adjectives. I don't need any other things or qualifiers that come with that. If you have actions that discriminate, you're wrong. So it doesn't matter why you did. Doesn't matter whether it's a female or whether that's the only thing I need to say. Don't discriminate. Period. So we need to take away some of these things in our great English language that we have and simplify and make things more all-encompassing. Another way you deal with things, which you're talking about is, so you had a great point about if I'm in a scenario and the person beside me is a multimillionaire in my school, and this kid over here can barely rub two nickels together, if for some reason that person who makes a lot of money thinks that other person is less of a person because of what they have, we've got to change that as well.
Yeah, that's a problem as well.
And so to your point, the way you do it is you deal with it. See, I think too many times we don't address issues, we bury them.
Yeah.
Right.
We hide behind them. We make a policy or a law that never deals with the heart of the issue. It only deals with the behavior. Now, I'm in the military. Let me tell people, there are racist people in the military. The reason there are no people you see is because we destroy the behavior. If we see the behavior, we kick you out of the military. Yeah. So the system is very good. The system is very vanilla because we know that if you have any kind of actions that are discriminatory, we just get rid of it, right? Well, in a school, it's not that simple, right? You got to say to school, you're 18 years old, you just can't get rid of somebody. So at the end of the day, you must create an environment that says this behavior is accepted, this behavior is not. I cannot change the way a child thinks, but I hope, my prayer is through my actions, through my example, through the way we interact with them, we will change their behavior because they see something better. Right. We will change their thought process and what they mean in their mind because they see something better. Now, I can't really tell you the second part will be there, but I can guarantee you in my school, we will change their behavior. Yeah. Because that I can change. I can't change your motivation or why you do what you do or your thinking. But I've learned from 28 years of military, you can change a human being's behavior. So I believe if we start focusing on behavior first, followed by an example of daily love, of daily accountability, all those things daily, we exhibit those things, that child starts to be in a cycle of this is what's expected of me, this is how I react to those things, and this is how we're going to make things happen. But to that, I don't believe we treat children well because we discredit their thought. So I would like to also have a school where if a child wants to disagree, we want to teach them the proper way to disagree. Because disagreement is not incorrect. It's being disrespectful that we can't handle.
That's right. That's right.
You can handle disagreement. My wife and I, we disagree all the time, about things. But the difference is we're respectful in our disagreement.
Yes.
Right? And so the same thing has to happen in the school. So if you have a child that believes they've been wrong or whatever the reason is, we teach them, okay, after class, we will set aside time or you make an appointment where you can discuss the issue you have with your teacher. And when they do it in private, as you're supposed to, we will make sure we admonish in private and we praise in public, as you should do it.
Right.
So that way there's not this shaming. There's not this deal that you feel you have to bow up or anything that happens with children when they're talked to, when they feel like they're disrespected. Because contrary publicly, you can be disrespected as a child. And we want to have that same love and respect for children that we ask of them for ourselves. So the way we handle those things doesn't mean we're going to acquiesce because they're a child. Matter of fact, the contrary. they're going to assimilate into that way of properly handling those things inside of the school. So that allows you to make sure you have a school where there are rules, not like just oppressive rules, but there are rules in even the way we interact with each other and that love and patience. So that's how you handle those issues. You have to tackle those issues. You can't run from those issues. You got to call a spade a spade. If a kid's being disrespectful, call it what it is, and then give them the path to be respectful. Don't just throw them out. Like, that's another thing. I watched in Philadelphia. I was a recruiter in the Army for a while. I commanded a battalion in the state of New Jersey and the western portion of Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania, Philadelphia proper, at the time I was there, had like a 54% graduation rate. Well, that means 46% of all those children are dropping out of school and they're not getting educated, right? And so a lot more discipline problems, a lot of things. And that just fueled my passion even more to say, where was the adult between the time the kid said that this behavior is acceptable and no one checked that child to the point where now the system kicked them out of the system? Like, what happened between that era right there? And so I think, as you start talking about holding kids accountable, we got to hold ourselves accountable. Right? We can't just not hold ourselves accountable. Parents have to hold themselves accountable. And I'm not talking about resources. So let me go up front, because people say, I ain't got money. That don't have anything to do with talking to your child and asking about, did you do your homework? You don't even have to know how to do the homework. Just asking your child, did they do their homework, is enough. And if you see a grade on a test and the grade is 50 out of 100, you can do the math and say the child didn't do well. And the question is, what do we need to do to help you? You may not be able to help the child, but the question is, what do we need to do to help you? And the school that you have should have those resources that allow me to help that child.
It's exciting. It's zesty. Purify and protect with our new lemon head-to-toe routine. The subtle, crisp fragrance instantly makes you feel clean. Guess I'll just keep using lemons for my water until my order gets here. Our new lemon range is available now.
And as you were talking, I was thinking about the fact that children come from homes in the school system. And you can have a myriad of mindsets and thought patterns and preferences and prejudices and choices and all that in that home. And that child is going to come to school because the child, for the first 5 years of their life, was ingrained in that flow.
That's right.
They're going to bring that to the school. Now, some of the children, you'll be able to change the trajectory of their thinking, to more of a inclusive, accepting type of frame mindset. But then there are going to be some who, this is what my daddy said, and this is the gospel in my home. So how would you address those children?
Great. Again, you guys asked some great questions, just to let you know. Go ahead and put it out there. Some great questions, some hard questions. Yeah. So addressing behavior is twofold. First of all, I am not advocating that we discredit a parent in the school we have. That is not my advocate. That is not what we're advocating. What we're going to say is, hey, here is a way of behavior that society that you're going to be a part of deems is okay, right? If your parent has another way they've taught you, you must have that challenge. And I'm not asking you to go challenge your mom, because I remember I challenged my mom once as well when I was 12. Yeah. That was a bad situation.
Didn't go well.
It did not go well. It did not go
like well. My mom, it didn't work out good for you.
Yeah. But what I am advocating is, you do not have to, if your parent is teaching you something that goes against just good human values of how you treat someone, then I would ask you to challenge in the sense of maybe you think different. So what I'm going to challenge the kid is, hey, kids are great at compartmentalizing. If you don't believe so, watch children who are divorced. They act one way at one parent's house, they act another way at another parent's house. You see in our society, look at people going to work. They act one way at work, they act another way at home, sometimes to the fool of some of them, So we know, don't make it sound humans aren't good. So if we need to help that child compartmentalize, that's what we're going to ask them. We're not going to tell them we're not asking them to do it. We're going to let them know, hey, we understand that you may have been wired different. You may actually been programmed different. But when you step through this door, here is the program we're giving you.
Right.
We would ask you to access that program,
Right.
being a computer geek for a minute, you access that program. You come here and this is how we want your behavior to be. And then we hopefully what's going to happen is change your thinking based on that. And that way I want to bring in the community to change their minds. So here's that part, the second part for the child. Now here's how I want to change the community. I want to make it 2 parts. And Alec, thanks. So how you change the community is I want to go out and support the community. The question is, why can't we go fix homes in the community from the school perspective? Why can't we have a cleanup day from the school and we pick a housing area and we go out and rake it up and do all kind of cool stuff? Why can't we do that? Why can't we give service projects to kids where they go out and help the community and teach them what it means to be part of service?
Right.
And once you see that you're going out to do those things, I believe what happens is people start to buy into the way you're doing business. And when you start changing the kid at the school and they see a difference, and then you go to the home and you start pouring into the community, that community reciprocates and it pours back into the school. And they start getting on board. And so the things that the kids bring at home, the parents are starting to say. And all of a sudden, you're starting to change that community, one child, because of the positivity.
Right.
But it's got to be action. You got to go back into the community and make a difference. I used to always laugh. Like when I was growing up, there was always like electricians and all kind of stuff. And it seems like the handyman at school always had some dude who came in to help him out. It was crazy. Like, Mr. Bob, he didn't work at the school, but Mr. Bob would show up when my guy was doing whatever he was doing. And
Right.
it's neat that we stopped that. We got unions. I'm not against unions. I'm not here to talk about unions being good or bad.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying. We got these things where we got these laws where you can't do the helping part. It's illegal. But we also lost the community investing into our system.
Absolutely.
So I tell people, if that means I got to get fired because I want the community, then I'll look for another job. That's how it works. But I believe if you start taking the community,
Yes.
you bring them and they're part of the solution. Like I like little things like this. Like we talk about sports. One of my things is certain kids can't pay to go to a game. And $10 is a lot of money for you to spend it on watching somebody play. It's 5 games normally at home, 5 games away in the season. $50 for some families is a lot of money. So my question is, why don't we help our kids earn it? I'd like for you to bring your report card. If you get A's for the semester, the following year, your whole year is free, right? If you want to go to the games. Why don't we do things to encourage kids
Right.
to offset dollars and cents, right? Why don't we do things that says, hey, if you have no, bad, weeks, if you're a discipline problem, whatever kind of stuff, or you whatever, we'll encourage you. This is something you get. And we start having those help. If a parent needs help with, tutoring, we provide that tutor for them. The things you have to do is it's an action. Look, this love word I'm talking about is all action. It's work. It's good old fashioned roll up your sleeves, get
Right.
work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, seeing that the generations that we have seen this come, starting from the baby boomers, who we are, is a total different generation. In the 60s, we know we became rebellious against everything. Anything that our mom and dad taught us, we had to challenge it. It wasn't necessarily incorporating them into our lives. We didn't do that till later, after we found out that our challenges was totally ignorant and wrong, because we didn't respect what we challenged instead of getting the knowledge of why they did a certain thing a certain way, or whatever the case may be, or why they believe what they believe. If we thought it wasn't right, we just challenged it and didn't do it no more, and then did things our own way without accepting it. Now we're in the generation of the millennials. Thank God for them, because the millennials advanced themselves somewhere where they took some of our principles, respected a few of our principles, and now they're going on a different level, which is I'm great, because my children, who are millennials, went to diverse schools. They have diverse friends. My son is married to a Spanish lady. My grandchildren are mixed Spanish, and we have all these cultural differences that we had to get over
Yep.
and deal with
Incorporate.
as the millennials. I tell you, my response to my son the first time he came home wasn't correct. It wasn't correct based upon my upbringing and everything else. And then I had to learn and catch myself and say, hold up, wait a minute. He has the right to choose who he loves. And my thinking of having culture involved in that, when I'm the one that took him to a school to be diverse and to respect other cultures and expose him to that, I almost disrespected that myself, thinking, oh, wait a minute, I did that. You see what I'm saying? So now we have the millennials who are much more understanding, the ones that were out there protesting this year and saying that systemic racism is wrong because we opened up the door for them. But in 5 years now, you're talking about educating their children.
That's correct.
Such as my oldest grandson is 18 but
already.
Then my oldest granddaughter will be turning 12 this year. In 5 years, she will be 17. Their perception of life is totally different from ours.
That's correct.
And with this generation, and we're talking to the public too, it's important that you understand these generational transfers and the things that happen during this time. So this next generation that we're coming up is not going to put up with our racism and our systemic racism. They're not going to put up with them because we did that. We took them into the society and said, this is what I want of you, diversity. This is what I want of you, to respect everybody, love people for who they are. And even if we didn't do that, we kind of had to kind of put up with it because that's the way society moved. Now with this generation that you're talking about educating, it is dynamically, it is strange and exciting at the same time, because it's not like we had to do and deal with straight up racism and do all this other type stuff. It's some of that stuff is dying down with the generation. Thank God for that.
That's coming.
And although it's on the national level right now, and it's on the forefront right now because of our leadership in our country is there and things in the world, this younger generation who was out there protesting.
Think totally different.
Now they think totally different, and I would always say to my wife as we watch the news, I am so proud of these young people. I'm so proud of them standing there together, holding hands and saying, wait a minute, you guys are the one that put us in this situation, and now you're telling us that this is right, this is not right.
Right.
And they're hollering that. So the generation that you're teaching and that you're talking about, although we're praying. We're praying that the most of this stuff will either be gone or buried back in the hole in which it was before. So when you're dealing with this and we're talking to the people about discipline and talking to the people about another level of education, and as you say, and as it is a big deal, we know that the education world has been full of women, and it's dominated by women simply because men don't have the patience.
Simply because.
And you know, it's funny, but it's not only the patience. Men have a fear because of what was in the past. You can't really go in and be a man and teach young people how to be a man without being sued or without being there. So therefore you have to, and men choose not, well, I'm not going to go into that field because this is what it is. But listening to you based upon your history and the things that you're talking about presenting, you're actually talking about presenting another opportunity for strong men, black, white, the same, to come back into the educational system, and let's grab our kids as men and work beside the women and kind of equal out the field so that our children have a balance and understand the roles of both men and women in their upbringing. And this is culturally, not only culturally, but society is very important. And at the time you're doing it, knowing the times, again, I say I'm a preacher, so I'm into the gospel and into what God does in the times, knowing the times that are coming up and the generation being set to accept what you're bringing to the educational system. I think is great and wonderful. So can you speak to that just briefly as a man? Because it's not an easy thing, but as a man that's taken on this thing to go into the educational field, not only as an administrator, but as a man that's bringing ideas to walk beside what's going on already in the education system.
So first of all, I remind people the first lesson you ever get in life is from a woman,
Yes.
a female. Everything you know when to eat, you know when to stop crying, why you cry. I mean, everything you learn, your social connection is from a woman. So there is a natural teaching order, whether you like to say it or not, or whether you adhere to it or not. I didn't say it just is there. That's what you learn from initially.
Yeah.
Right? And the second part you learn generally in a household, who have men and women in the household, you have the other person. I won't even say men and women. In a household, you need someone who understands what you do and someone who understands why you do it. My mother and my grandmother happened to be, I did not have the dad. What I had was my mom, who served as the what I did, and my grandma, who served as why I did. And this is, I'll give you a quick, scenario. I decided one day to skip school, right? I was a little grade school kid. I decided I wasn't going to go to school, and I got caught. When I got home, the only question my mother asked was, did you or did you not skip school? Were you or were you not in school? And when I answered the question as I should, truthfully, my mom commenced to whooping my behind for the next couple of minutes.
Right.
When she was done, my grandmother came over and says, son, why did you not value your education? See, she didn't care about the fact I skipped school.
Right.
That was not her question. Her question had nothing to do with, she already knew I skipped school. Her question was one of the heart. And so I think what you're really talking about is within a school system, you have to have a diversity in education of people that get beside each other and talk about why you do things and what you do, right, the heart as well as the head and all those things. And generally speaking, what you just talked about was the traditional roles, right? And they don't have to be traditional, to your point. The new generation, they may or may not be traditional. But currently, men are not doing their job, if you ask me, of imparting upon our society the things that make the way they're wired. I'm not saying it's wired better or worse, it's just wired different. And so sometimes you want to get into a situation where men come back and they focus on what you're doing. And they're imparting upon them the lessons you need to know about being a young male in society. You also need to understand what it means to be a female in society.
Right.
And so you must come back to school as an educator and not be afraid that the way you are brought up is wrong. Now, in the midst of that, I tell people the reason normal people get sued is because they've crossed the line between what you believe and what's accepted.
Right.
I will never have a young man in my school who, so when someone asks them what they believe and they tell them, they're not going to get in trouble. I'm not going to let them get in trouble. I'm not getting in trouble. That's not, if you say that, if that is not able to be discussed in our school, and that's called censorship, by the way, then we can talk about that.
Right.
I'm not going to tell, now, if you say that's right or wrong, we can have a different discussion, right? But a belief is just that. I believe that you should be married before you start doing other things. That's a belief I have.
Right.
That doesn't mean I believe you can't be a good person if you don't do that. You ask me about my belief, right? If I start professing and bullying someone or protesting or whatever, that kind of stuff based on someone else's action, now I've crossed the line. So to your point, I think even teaching men what is acceptable and what they shouldn't be punished for, is important. And I think as you start seeing myself in that position, and I encourage other men in that position, I think it will naturally happen. But it's got to be recruited. I think you have to go out and recruit.
Right.
You know, I don't think I'm naive. Like this is not going to happen just because Troy is a great guy.
Right.
I'm going to have to go out and find great men who have a passion for the education I have and go out and do things. And remember, I don't think it's going to sound terrible. So, you know, you can figure out whether you want to keep it or not. But I don't believe that you have to be the smartest or the best to be the teacher. And I know people will beat me up when I say that or whatever, but if they'll let me finish that thought, they'll see where I'm coming from. You have to be good enough to understand how to do the things you're doing, that you're imparting the knowledge to the kids. What you have to have is a compassion and a caring that goes along with it. I believe you have to have those C's, right? You have to be competent, first of all, right? You have to be compassionate.
Yeah.
You have to be caring, right? You have to be civil when you deal with the kids. So these are these C's, right? I'll probably have something that says C cubed or C squared or something that kids know that when they go in here, hey, are you being C cubed or are you being C squared or 3 times C or whatever, something cool for this next generation, you know, they can remember that our expectation is this is what's going to happen. And I've got to recruit those young men, to your point. You've got to go back and take back those schools in a way that says, as a young man, I have an experience. I'm going to share that experience. And as it happens, I may do things a little different than my female counterpart. And that's okay. What it can't be okay is we beat either one of those up for the way they do it, as long as they're caring, compassionate, competent, you know, civil. You can't worry about the fact it's different as long as we want to worry about it being effective. And I believe kids will give you a pass. I've always said this. In my heart, I believe this. If you are a teacher that cares about kids and you care about their learning and you make mistakes, first of all, kids will correct you because they're smart as can be. So don't make it sound like you'll get over it. Kids will correct you. But the second part is kids are okay with you making mistakes, because if you care about a kid, they're like, yo, he makes mistakes. It's all right. But he's good. That's how kids are. And if you don't care about kids, they don't care about how smart you are. They don't want to hang around you. They don't want to be around you. They don't want to do anything around you. So let's not make it about I say the reason I'm getting the PhD in the education is because I believe you're smarter with it. I believe that where some of those instructors and teachers have 28 years of doing their profession, I have to get a lot of their teaching and what they've learned through the School of Hard Knocks, through a school of education.
Right.
And so, like I said, I believe that if you have that caring and compassionate, loving portion, the competence you have to have, you got to pass the board. Remember, everybody's in teaching is certified. They demonstrated the ability to do it. So I don't have to test that. At the end of the day, if they have that, I believe I can recruit men to come out and do those things you're talking about, because they see that they're in a safe environment in the sense of, when I come here, I can be, I'm like you, I hesitate to use the word a man. I don't want to put a stereotype in the way you act, but you can be who you are.
Right.
And it's okay.
Right.
That's the key, right? And so that was your point, but it's got to be recruiting. Don't get it twisted. I got to actively make that happen. That is not going to naturally happen until we get successful. Once you're successful, everybody wants to come join you. This is how it laughs. You know, I talk about school boards. School boards will fight you tooth and nail if you're trying to change the world because they think you whatever. Once you change the world, they will break their back getting on your bandwagon and getting on your whatever and taking that success and all the stuff goes with it. Once you're successful, nobody gives you a problem. So, you know, I'm already prepared. There's going to be a time where I probably get fired twice or whatever in the process, whatever, until one school believes in me and says, look, we're not going to get another guy who cares as much as this dude does, who doesn't take a pay, who doesn't worry about all this stuff, and he's just working his tail off. We just going to put up with it. Like, I think once I find that school, we'll have a great relationship. You know, we're going to upward trend, but I already prepared myself. There's going to be adversity, and
Awesome.
I'm okay with it.
Wow, wow, and wow. What a wonderful conversation we've had thus far with Troy Barnes. I'm telling you, we thoroughly enjoyed that conversation. Did y'all enjoy that? So listen, there was just so much good dialogue coming from him and so much that he was bringing. I mean, he was just giving life to that conversation until we decided to make it a part 1 and part 2. So you've seen part 1. Come back next week, Monday at 7 p.m. to catch part 2 of our spotlight of Troy Barnes. He has so many wonderful things that God has dropped into his spirit and has given him the passion for, that he wants to see manifested in this world. and he wants to leave that imprint in this world. So I want you guys to come back next Monday at 7 o'clock p.m. to hear the rest of the spotlight of Troy Bonds. Thank you so much for joining us.
Be authentically you, 'cause now is your season to live out your reason. Just be you. How you gonna leave your imprint on this world? Be authentically you, 'cause now is your season to live out your reason. Just be you. How you gonna leave your imprint on this world?